Welcome to episode 7 of From the Finkel End, and I'm delighted to have Michael Goff join me this week. Michael, how are you, mate?
Very well, thanks, Thorpe. Yeah, yourself?
I'm very good, mate. Thank you. Appreciate you taking time in your little bubble there. We'll come on to that a little bit later on, but we'll have a little bit of chat about your time at Durham, and then how that led into getting into umpiring, mate, because it's a really interesting transition. You had a choice to make, I guess, at some stage, and we'll have a little chat through that. And maybe have a little bit of fun towards the end there where you can chuck a few teammates under the bus. Which I'm sure you'll really enjoy.
Oh, I'm sure.
There's probably some nervous people watching this right now. Quality, mate. So, first question, Goffy, is what got you started playing cricket?
So, my first interest, I guess it comes majority of the time, doesn't it, from family members. So, my dad obviously was a very keen local cricketer. Started off at Seaton Crew as a youngster when he first came over from Ireland. Started at Seaton, moved on to Hartlepool. Then his business moved onto Peterlee, and he sort of played around a lot of the teams around there. Peterlee, he played for Easington. Played for a while for Wolverston, and again, just as a young kid, following around primarily with Hartlepool Cricket Club and my mates, and we just follow them around. And obviously, the love affair with cricket was born at that age. And you know, like most kids, you're sport daft, aren't you? Really, when you're exposed to that environment, and you know, we didn't live far from the ground at Hartlepool, so yeah, I guess sort of from the age of when I could hold a bat, really, from being 2 or 3 year old.
Yeah.
Just following my dad around and. You know, him carrying me around in his kit bag, the old school kit bags that you used to have with the handles.
Definitely.
So I guess that's where the first love affair was born with cricket.
Brilliant. And it kills me to say this, but quite a natural footballer as well, and one of those guys who could actually claim that, I had trials and all that kind of jazz, but it is actually genuine with you.
Yeah. I mean, that's that was pretty much born from, I think, from a young kid, from being a young footballer as well. I had trials at Arsenal when I was a young kid. I must have been 13 or 14, and unfortunately got an Achilles injury while I was actually on trial at Arsenal. And the guy who was taking us at the time was obviously well-known Pat Rice, and Pat came on and played centre half while I was injured in his tracksuit and his bloody loafers or whatever he had on at the time. So it was a case of, I think, 14, 15-year-old, and then was asked to go to Lillishall at the time. Obviously, remember the National Sports Centre where all the young, the teams used to go in preparation for tours abroad. And I was invited down there with England under 15s at the time, or 14s, whatever it was. And so it was either a choice, well, it wasn't even really a choice. It was just something I sort of fell into. Got invited down, did reasonably well at sort of 14, 15. And then every sort of thing kicked on from there with the cricket from sort of 15 and then on to the academy, and football really took a back seat.
Yeah.
And obviously until I'd finished my career at Durham at age 23, and then obviously played local league, had a few trials. Unfortunately went to Darlington, our arch enemies, being a Hartlepool fan. But no, on a serious note, I just wanted to get the best out of my ability, because I never did that with cricket. Cricket was always something I never really enjoyed, even from the age of sort of 16, 17. When I first got on the academy, never really enjoyed it. So to go back to a love affair of football and certainly enjoyed that for a couple of years, it was a bit of a godsend, really, where I could just play something that I'd really enjoyed and sort of got that love of, that you have as a kid, to play sport, and football certainly gave me that for a few years.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So just talk to us about how Hartlepool to the academy, as you've mentioned there, how did that kind of happen, and who was kind of in your ear to make that kind of an opportunity for you?
Yeah, so at Hartlepool, obviously, being from a young kid and had come through the junior system there, and obviously the senior setup, and I was lucky enough to be playing first team cricket at the age of 15-year-old. Being just an opening batsman there, and had a season at Hartlepool, 15 and 16. Couple of really good seasons, for a 15 and 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
And then there was always talk of obviously the new Durham Academy being set up. And I guess at that age probably just struck it lucky, to be part of the first intake at the academy. So at the age of 16, I had a really good season with Hartlepool, and then through that winter, that's when the academy was set up. And obviously the first intake will have been likes of me, Mark Symington, Simon Birtwistle, Chris Hewson, Ian Stixunder, even Harmy. Harmy was obviously part of the first intake of.
Yeah.
So that's how it really happened from Hartlepool through to the academy. So that took me till I was like sort of 17-year-old. Through that winter, obviously trained quite hard, and then sort of signed that summer contract from Durham. Being part of the academy also.
Brilliant stuff. And that transitioned quite quickly for you. I believe you England under-19s. Cheeky little tour there.
Yeah. Again, I was like, I look back on it now, and it's weird for somebody who didn't really enjoy playing the game. That like I guess I always had a decent work ethic. I was always like, if the time was right, and I had my head screwed on right, and wasn't doing things I shouldn't have been doing, then I always sort of knuckled down and quite enjoyed the competition on the cricket field.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't enough to satisfy the craving that I needed, in my life. But yeah, going back to that, England 19s, had a relatively good sort of summer with them against Pakistan. I think it was only 17 at the time. Played Pakistan in the 17s, and then off the back of that, managed to get picked for England under-19s trip to South Africa, where we won the under-19 World Cup. So that was an amazing experience. I mean, as a young kid back then, not having really left home, and being surrounded by your mates in an unbelievable country like that. Sun was shining, everywhere was cheap, the beer was cheap, the food was cheap. So obviously a group of young lads away on a trip like that was just phenomenal for me. And 2 months or 10 weeks away, and obviously it finished with us winning the World Cup in Johannesburg. Unfortunately, I wasn't part of the team that day, but still got a winner's medal to show for it, and it was just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, it was a pretty steady side there. Run through a few of the big names that were.
So I batted sort of 3, 4, 5. So we had Stephen Peters opening the batting, Northamptonshire, Essex, Worcester. Who else? Rob Key, obviously. Yeah. Keysy doing some commentary now from Sky. Keysy's part of that side. Away Shah, played for England. We had Paul Franks, also Chris Schofield, the leg spinner. One and only Graham Swan, half decent off spinner, played for England. So we had some, it was a great group of lads, some very strong characters at that age. And for me, it was great because it just brought me out of my shell, travelling away with guys, and you couldn't help but improve your game, with those lads, being around them, because they were all, at that age, you're all cocksure, aren't you? And, their egos are huge at that young age. And it was, so it brought me out of my shell, and 10 weeks over there practicing and enjoying life off the field as well. It was a dream come true, really, for sort of 17-year-old. But that side was phenomenal to win the World Cup like we did. Quickly move on from that, not move on, but the end of that trip, we played South Africa in a test match series before the World Cup. And Phil Neal was our manager at the time, a guy called John Abrahams, and Phil is actually the England team manager now. So I go back, a long time with Phil. And it was a little bit of reverse psychology because we were a shambles in that series against South Africa, because when we weren't playing cricket, all we were doing is leaving the cricket field and then going out, till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, back on the cricket field, And then we got to the World Cup, the group stages of the World Cup. I think Bangladesh had beaten us. And Phil, bit of reverse psychology, lads, you've been a shambles now for like 6, 7 weeks. You can do your own thing. Him and John Abrahams just left us to it. Bit of reverse psychology. Everybody got their heads together and just said, look, lads, I think we've enjoyed ourselves a little bit too much on this trip. We got our heads together, did a bit of practice, and the rest of this is history. And went on to win the under-19 World Cup. So it was quite a fitting way, really, to finish the trip.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Brilliant stuff. And then that moved on into some first-class cricket there with Durham for the next few years. Pretty successful, I think. Was it 2002? I think was a really good year for you, where you scored a lot of runs, and probably without your runs and John Lewis at the top of the order, some of our games wouldn't have lasted very long, to be totally honest. So you were in some pretty good form there. And then talk to me about 2003. So 2003, Michael Gough, first-class cricketer, all of a sudden just falls out of love with the game, and just talk me through how that happened.
Well, I'll rewind back a little bit just to 2002 then, and sort of talk you through my mindset in 2002. So, I was set on to play that year and then finish.
Really?
I had it in my mind, and I think, talking to you and a few of the guys around the changing rooms, I think all you guys pretty much knew how I was feeling about the game. But everybody says that, don't they? Sometimes when you're really peed off with the game and you're getting really frustrated, it's easy to just turn around and go, "Oh, I've had enough. I want to do something else." Blah blah.
Yeah.
But 2002, I remember coming home from Australia that winter, and it must have been about the February March time. And I remember speaking to my mum and dad and just saying, "Look, I've had enough. I really don't want to go back for this season." Slept on it, and then the next morning I just woke up and sort of realization struck me as if to say, "Wow, what am I going to do?"
Yeah.
Now it's March time or February March time. Going to have to make a decision now. What do I do? And I just thought, well, I was getting paid reasonable money. I thought, well, at least it's another 6 or 7 months of getting paid decent money and not having to find a proper job in the real world of work. So I went out and just played with a bit of freedom. Just went out and just enjoyed it, relaxed. In fact, I think I was playing cricket at Benwell Hill that summer, which sort of reignited the passion again.
Okay.
I had a really good time when we played, and we won the Premier League at the time.
Yeah.
And we had a really successful side, won the Premier League, and off the back of that, getting runs for Benwell Hill in the Premier League, I sort of obviously got my spot back inside. Played, did reasonably well. I think obviously averaged about 50. And it was just one of those summers where everything came together. Played with a bit of freedom, sort of enjoyed it a little bit more in a fashion. And then obviously got to the end of the 2002 season, and then there was chat about England Academy and sort of things moving forward. Would I get on the New England Academy at the time? And to be quite honest, I just thought, look, I've had enough here. I've really had enough. Got to so off the back of that winter, I think I'd signed a new contract, an extension of my contract. So I signed like a new 2-year deal to take me into 2003 and 2004.
Yeah,
I had the 2 years there. And then 2003 was just a shambles. I was back to my old ways of just not practicing hard enough, not being professional off the field. Probably a nightmare to captain, really, because obviously, John himself, and John's such a good, fair, reasonable bloke who's got his heart set on the game and loves the game. And I just didn't have any interest. And obviously for coach and your teammates as well. And I think, having to carry me with them at the time, it just didn't feel right. And got to obviously the end of the 2003 season and made that decision then that I probably should have made at the back end of 2002. So I was basically purely just doing it really for the money, for that year, which is, I'll be honest enough to say that now, but looking back, that's what I was doing. And then 2003, Martin Muxon was coach at the time. And I remember just picking the phone up and speaking to Martin and said, look, Martin, I've had enough. I don't think I can do this anymore. And then obviously I had a good conversation with Martin, and then he sort of explained, we came to an agreement that I would have a sabbatical for a year. So that I wouldn't obviously I'd keep my contract, see how that season went, and then possibly come back again in 2004 and play again. And then in that meantime, in that 2004 season, went to play at Hartlepool Cricket Club for the summer and be there professional. And didn't enjoy it one little bit. Didn't, probably more expectation. Again, just wasn't enjoying it. It's exactly the same mindset I had been a professional cricketer. Just hadn't enjoyed it. And obviously got to that end of that 2004 season. And remember just obviously speaking to Martin and saying, I think that's me done, Martin, I think. And we'd obviously agreed that, that sabbatical was over and, I wouldn't be going back to Durham.
Massive decision. And had your mindset on what you were going to do after that, or was it just needed that clean break from a mental health point of view?
Absolutely no idea. Yeah, it was a bit like a couple of years in the wilderness. No, again, I just wanted to play a bit of football. Rekindle my love playing a bit of football again. I was quite lucky that my dad had his own business at the time, his own sports shop business. Yeah. So obviously there was a job opportunity, available for me to go into that and do a little bit of work and to be fair, he treated me with kid gloves a bit. He kept me sheltered from the outside world, so I wasn't really back into the world of work, so to speak.
Yeah.
Learning about business and obviously people skills, which I guess to the skills now that I've obviously needed for umpiring. Really, sort of talking, face to face and dealing with some irate customers and certain people coming in. So so that was interesting. Obviously, that period. So a couple of years in the wilderness, played some football, continued to be professional for Hartlepool Cricket Club over that period of time. And I think it was about 2000, and so it was probably only about a year later, 2005. I remember being in the back of the shop watching the Ashes at the time, you know, which everybody, you know, one of probably the best series ever.
Yeah.
And I actually looked at the game, and you know, wow, I was at that time. I just thought, wow, that could have been me. That, you know, that could have been me involved in that series, or you know, and you start, and that's when I started the clogs were ticking in my mind. Well, you know, how much do I miss the game? Would I like to be back involved in it? And then, you know, I made some phone calls to, you know, people at the ECB, Peter Hartley being one of them, the former Yorkshire Ball in Hampshire, because Peter used to sell cricket boots. So he used to come in our shop and sell, and obviously Flog had some boots, and we'd sell them in the shop. So I used to speak to Peter quite regularly. Managed to get hold of Richard Cattleburgh's number. Spoke to Richard quite a little bit about that, and then applied to the ECB reserve list, which would have been sort of 2005, and was fortunate enough to be offered the position on their reserve list at the time.
That's amazing. That's how you kind of fast tracked through there based on that you'd played some cricket and etc.
Yeah, absolutely. Even looking back now, I mean, it was amazing how little experience I had in umpiring.
Yeah.
You know, I'd probably umpired, you know, Division 3, you know, of the local leagues, you know, doing maybe 5 or 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
It just wouldn't happen now. You know, you'd probably have to do 3 or 4 years of second team cricket, and maybe with the odd sort of first team game thrown in there before you even thought about getting. So when I look back now, I was just so lucky with the timing with it. But when I look back even further, probably at the end of that 2002 season, if I'd have probably finished playing then, I'd have probably got involved in umpiring a bit earlier. But you know, the way things have worked out, it's worked out pretty well since then. So I can't complain too much.
No, definitely, and I didn't realise that it was 2005 that you kind of got involved. So you have now been literally umpiring for 15 years, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So ECB, you're appointed onto that panel, started doing first class games, and how did the ICC kind of recognition come about from there?
So I started on the ECB reserve list in sort of 2006. Spent 3 years, did okay there. Was lucky enough to get a promotion for the 2010 season. So that was my sort of first full year on the full ECB panel, doing games around the country, championship matches, one-day games, T20s, and then so after about 3 or 4 years, obviously, you know, performances were fairly reasonable. The feedback that I was getting that was going to the ECB must have been positive. And then in 2013, you know, I got the email and the phone call that I'd got a promotion to the international panel, which meant that I was still obviously could do county cricket and, you know, obviously still the same amount of matches. But that would include now doing England ODIs and England T20s. And that was 2013. And then fortunate enough to work as well to go away in the winter and do some associate some matches for the T20 and the 50 over World Cup. So in the space of sort of a year, I went to Abu Dhabi, UAE, Dubai to umpire some T20 qualifiers over there. Did really well. Had a good tournament. Ended up doing the final. Off the back of that, went to the 50 over World Cup qualifiers in New Zealand, and then so everything had pretty much, you know, had gone really quickly, really well, really quickly, and then obviously just, you know, did, you know, a few years of international cricket here in England, doing the ODI series, and then obviously some series abroad as well, and then Test match debut 2016, Zimbabwe v New Zealand. And also very nice to have David Boone as my match referee.
Brilliant.
Obviously, I haven't played with Booney, you know, so it was quite a nice touch that, you know, that Booney was there for my first game, just to calm my nerves, put his arm around me, you know, and have a few beers with him, you know, before, not the night before, should I say, but, you know, in the time leading up to it, you know, just to calm the nerves and sort of speak about how, you know, the last 20 years had gone, and such a good bloke who's sort of kept an eye out for me since, and he's obviously an exceptional match referee as well.
How things have changed, eh? No beer on the night before a game anymore.
That's right, yeah.
Brilliant, mate. Talk to me about the pressure that you feel now. So there's 1,000 cameras looking at you, critiquing every move that you make, the way that you speak to players, the way that you decision make. Talk to me about how you handle that pressure. For somebody that had fallen out of love with the game as a player, I'm assuming now you must love it, because you're right where you want to be. You're at the top of your game. I said this the other day, and I got a bit of stick about the whole cricket friends thing, saying that I think you're probably the number one I call you a ref, number one umpire in world cricket right now. But how does that pressure and the scrutiny get to you?
Yeah, I think it's when I first started, I actually really struggled with it in the first sort of few years of DRS because I just I couldn't accept being wrong.
Yeah.
You know, like it's a big dent to your ego. You know, when you see it on the screen that you've made a decision, what you think's the right decision, and then it gets overturned by that's it. Yeah, it gets overturned by technology. It's a big kick in the teeth, and it took me a while to just accept that technology's here to stay, and you're never going to beat the system. All I could do is just rely on my processes, really. Keep myself as fit as I possibly could. Do a lot of exercises, stay fit. Work on my communication skills, my management skills, just focus on the things that I could focus on. Technology to me now, I've got no control over technology when I give a decision. Again, I could give a decision and everything would look perfect. And then it comes, I give somebody out LBW and then it comes out on the screen that's probably missing by another set. So that sometimes it can be tough, to do that, to make decisions and then get your decisions overturned. But it's just part and parcel of the game. You look at any sport now, don't you? You look at football as well.
Yeah.
I mean, look at VAR and how that's worked out really. Which, to be fair, it's been a bit of a shambles, hasn't it? Really, over the last year or two. Yeah. You sort of passing one subjective decision from a on-field referee onto another guy who sat in a place, a million miles away. So it's tough really because I guess with the technology that we have, it's quite finite. Once you move through to if you use an ultra edge, the technology's there. Once you go through the ball track and the technology's there. So yeah, it's just the world that we live in really, and we've all got to get used to it and accept it. But it doesn't make it as easy, you don't feel as as good, when it's when it works against you. But when it does, it's quite nice, when you get the right decision and you have a good day at the office. But yeah, you're dodging a bullet with it every day, really. Hoping that you have a decent day and that you get through the day. So that's how I look at technology at the moment.
No, definitely. And I think the communication side of it in cricket, you get away with it a little bit more because you get the thought process of what's going on. And I think in VAR, I think that's something that's really missing, is that you don't get that communication side of what they're looking at and why, I guess, how they justify their decisions. And I think in the cricket, you've got the visuals there and you've got the third umpire that's communicating obviously with the producers to get, rock and roll that for me, please, which is now the catchphrase, especially from Kumar and people like that. But you've got that clear picture and you can go, okay, well, I actually understand why that's been overturned. But I don't think that exists in VAR as of yet.
Yeah, well, again, that's a thing. And that was a process that we had to go through, with the early doors of technology in cricket. It was pretty much exactly the same, wasn't it? It was pretty much trial and error for the very first, few years until they actually got the system right. And that's a good thing that I like about, being a third umpire now, when you talk through the system. And it's great, for people at home or people who've never watched the game before and you're trying to get their interest into the game. When they switch the telly on, or, for people who just love the game, who just want to be talked through a decision.
Yeah.
Because it's not only that, you can obviously, they'll know more about the laws of the game as well. So things like that people can pick up and watch at that time. And, being third umpire now is probably just as important as being on field. I feel a lot more busier in the third umpire's chair sometimes than I do when I'm actually out in the middle. It's just you tend to have a lot more focus on you when you're out in the middle because you're obviously stood there.
Yeah.
But when you go live to air, because you're live obviously around the world now, aren't you, on TV? Then obviously we've got no crowd here at the ground, but normally you're live to air as well around the stadium. So, when you go somewhere like India or, loud places like that and you're live to air and you've got like 50, 60,000 people screaming away and you do sometimes feel the pressure. So it just comes back to following your processes and make sure that you're ultimately getting the decision right, especially with technology.
Yeah, and I guess that the scrutiny is probably more on you. I think the on-field decision, you probably go, yeah, well, I could see that was just sliding. But once you're the one looking at the cameras and you have all that technology available to you, I think the scrutiny is really there. And go back to, was it the Shannon Gabriel no ball the other day? And I think, was there one, I think we had a few messages over a no ball where you got, the commentators actually were having a dip at you and you had all that kind of going on in your ear, but you'd made the right decision that it wasn't a clear no ball, so the benefit of the doubt goes to the bowler at that time. So just saying there that I think once that third umpire position now, the scrutiny is probably more on you. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and we, as a third umpire now, so we have to watch what people don't see from behind the scenes. They think we just do obviously the decisions and that's it. But there's everything that you've got to follow. We do all the time, and so obviously when there's people are the overrates for the match, which are very important now because obviously fines can be huge for the team, and captains can miss out, for games. So you've got to do all the timings, so you're always literally watching the game for any stoppages in the game, which you wouldn't believe how many little stoppages there are. People changing gloves, people getting a drink. We've got to recall all them timings through a day, and then you also you talk to your colleagues, make sure that they're okay. Any issues with technology, you may be talking to the director or the producer. So when you're third umpire, you can't switch off. You're always on, and then you're obviously watching for when there's an appeal as well. We have the countdown for the appeal.
Yeah.
You've got to wait for the captain to do his T signal, and then straight away, we hear the technician from the back of the room. Okay, latching live, and then that's it. Away you go, and you do your thing, and hopefully you get the decision right, especially with the technology.
Yeah. Brilliant stuff. Great insight for everybody that's listening and watching. Run me through. So you've got your day's play. I'll come back to another question in a minute. What happens at the end of a day's play? So do all the umpires get together and have a chat around what's happened during the day and any controversy or decisions?
Yeah, we will do. We do. Yeah, we talk. I mean, especially in this environment when you're in lockdown, we're in each other's company literally permanently. With breakfast, dinner, lunch. Even on the days off. So yeah, you would do on a day. Obviously, after a test match is finished, we'd come in the room. We'd just sit down, relax, get a bit of dinner, rehydrate, and you're just chatting about anything that's happened on the field, anything that's worthwhile. You're just sharing any best practices with each other, really. But you tend to do that through the match as well, because obviously we've got earpieces and we speak to each other, so I can speak to so there's last test match I was with Richard Illingworth. Richard's obviously got an earpiece, I've got an earpiece, and we can speak with each other quite openly and quite freely throughout the day. And sometimes you need a little bit of humour with that as well, because sometimes periods of cricket can be tough, and then sometimes you might just bring up what you might have had a night out somewhere and something that a few laughs that you've had, and just to try and take the pressure off you a bit, really. So it's as important just to have that.
You can't concentrate for 7 hours a day, so you need those switch off periods as well.
It's a bit like being a batsman, yourself as well. You can't, if you're a batsman, you play the ball, you have to learn to switch off, don't you? Ball are exactly the same. You can't concentrate for that period of time, even though you're aware of what's going on, but it's just impossible to concentrate for that period of time. So between balls, you do switch off, and we might have a conversation with, the third umpire in the room alongside the match referee and your colleague as well, and sometimes with the players as well, square leg, and sometimes it's nice to have a chat with them and talk about things non-cricket or even cricket, whatever it will be, just to find out about people alike as they are as human beings and not just cricketers. You tend to find that a lot with cricket, because they've obviously got fed up at times speaking to their own sort of teammates and their own coaches and managers. So you tend to find that they come to you with a few of their problems and issues, and just talk about life in general. So it's a way for me to get to know the players as well. That's how I always think, man management, and if they see your human side as well, I always think it's an easy way to develop a relationship with a player. Brilliant
stuff. We'll go back to the flip side of that. How would you prepare for a test match or a series? So what do you do? Loads of video analysis, or will you just literally now you've got your process kind of down pat and you're just quite happy to run with it?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example today, which would be probably a typical example of a normal day. So I've been doing quite a lot of running now, sort of through lockdown, to keep the fitness up. So jogged this morning, then I go into the gym, just do a few weights, work on like core exercise. For me, being tall, I've always had issues with my back, so it's important that when you stood for any period of time in the middle, and make sure that I've got the core strong, and I know that potentially I could be out there for 5 days, so I want to make sure that the body's right and fit for going through. Finish in the gym, get a feed, breakfast or whatever it'll be, and then what we'll do, we'll probably go across to the nets where the teams are practicing. So today we went across to the England nets. Jofra Archer was bowling, Ollie Stone, Chris Wokes was batting, Josh Butler, Joe Root, and then we'll stand and just get preparation. Just see the ball like your batsman would have his throwdowns, and gets into his routine like your bowler has his ball throughs. We'll do exactly the same thing. We'll go and stand in the nets, stand in the position that we normally would, just get used to certain bowlers, because I've not had Jofra before in any form of cricket, so it's a good reference for me. So, you know, obviously tomorrow morning, if Jofra's in the side and he bowls at my end, at least I'll have had a little bit of a reference point to know where his feet are landing, what speed the ball is coming down at as well, because sometimes that can be the biggest thing, especially in international cricket, is the pace of the bowler's ball. You know, by the time you've had a look at the front foot and then you look at the other end, the ball's halfway through the keeper already. You know, and potentially if you're missing an LB and it's dumped into the pads and you're thinking, geez, what's happened there really? And sometimes it can be a bit of an educated guess. So you're just trying to find little trends with the players. Just gives you a chance to speak them outside, obviously, the bubble of, you know, of being across that white line. Anything that they might want to discuss about the previous test that's happened, anything to do with law or regulation, or, you know, other player traits as well. They might ask you about, you know, a bowler from the other side. Where was he landing? Was he close to the stumps? Was he wide of the stumps? So they're trying to get the advantage with it as well. And then, yeah, just chill out in the afternoon, spend a bit of time on the beds, just watch some series, you know, speak to family. And then we've been up for dinner tonight, 7 o'clock, had dinner together. And then obviously come and see your lovely face afterwards and chat with you. And that's and that'll be it. And then that's it. So I'll finish this tonight and just chill. Plenty of rehydration and, you know, and then ready for a test match tomorrow.
Cool. And are all the teams that you come across happy for you to come and spend time with them in the nets?
Yeah, generally pretty good. Yeah. I mean, we're all in it together, and you look at the bigger picture, don't you? Especially in lockdown, you know. I think that, you know, with all the work that's been done from behind the scenes, from ICC to ECB, you know, and the players so far. I mean, regardless of what happens in this next test match, you know, you can't foresee the future, but both teams have been excellent so far. Been made to feel very welcome. West Indies are here, happy to play cricket, and obviously it's set up very nicely at the moment. But yeah, you know, generally you have no issues with the players. I mean, it's sometimes it can be a bit weird if you've given a player out twice in a match LBW, and you know you won't pass them in the corridor and trying to say good morning, and sometimes it can be a little bit frosty. But that's the way it is. You know, we all know that we've got a job to do, and that's just the way it is, isn't it? That's the nature of professional sport.
Brilliant stuff. I'll ask you one more question about your umpiring. What's the toughest decision to give, do you think?
Again, like, it could be the perfect storm with a lot of things. Like, a lot of people could, sometimes depends on a bowler's follow through. You might actually not be able, if with his arms and legs getting away, sometimes you lose sight of the ball. Okay. And, you know, when people at home are watching a decision and they go, oh, I can't believe he's missed that. That was absolutely plumb. And sometimes you just lose sight of the ball. Or you might have a bowler that gets, you know, sometimes spinners, when they bowl a ball, they'll come across it to go and retrieve the ball. So at that critical moment, when it's about to hit the pads or a call behind, whatever, sometimes you can't see anything. So it's just a case that you just need a bit of luck. And hopefully you've got some reviews up your sleeve as well that the players can learn and use them tactically. So yeah, again, it's just dependent on the day and then the conditions as well. Obviously, if you're in India, or if you're in a country where it's really loud, you've actually got you've got no chance at all of picking up some of the nicks behind the wicket. It's impossible because you just can't hear anything. You can't hear literally the ball running up behind you, you know. And when somebody gives, you know, you watch it on the telly and you think, well, why isn't he give that? It's so obvious. But when you actually stood there, you genuinely can't hear, you know, you can't hear yourself think. So again, could be sometimes bowlers who are pitching a ball on and around leg stump. Is it pitching in line? People who get sort of close to the stumps, they could be a challenge as well. Caught behinds again, obviously come to, you know, the sounds as well of decisions like that. So on any given day, you could have any decision, you know. So it could be a run out that's non-televised as well. You know, somebody gets in your way, or you know, you might stumble or fall over. There's so many things that can happen that, you know, that you don't really see when you're not an umpire. So every day has its challenges, and I guess just with experience, you tend to try and, you know, hopefully identify trends that I may be getting wrong, and then being able to, you know, look at some old footage of decisions that I've made when I have got it right, or, you know, and then I'll just go on the nets. And sometimes we might even stand together. I've done this with Richard Illingworth before. I'll just stand, he'll stand there, I'll look over his head, and then a ball will come in. A ball will come in the ball, and then it might hit him on the pads, and then we'll say to each other, well, what do you think about that? Would you give that out, or blah blah? And we're just talking to each other all the time, trying to get best practice and improve each other's games as well. So little things like that, just to make 1% better, is what we try to do.
Brilliant stuff. Well, we'll have a bit of fun now, mate. We'll leave all that kind of jazz behind. So you can throw umpiring and playing into this one. So where was your favourite grounds to play at or umpire at in the world?
Umpire, yeah, I always enjoyed the outground. So, any festivals, I always enjoyed the Cheltenham Festival, especially the wine bar around the corner. That was always quite nice, isn't it? No, Cheltenham was good. The outgrounds are great because you just had that atmosphere, didn't you, from the outgrounds? And generally the pitches are always pretty good as well. Worcester, I've always really enjoyed umpiring at Worcester, like the smaller grounds. Test match venues, obviously England, all the venues, especially Lords, when you're walking out to do an ODI there, and a full house, and you walk through the long room. It's a great feeling, and you're walking out there. Some of the grounds around the world, Adelaide, fantastic venue. Obviously, you've got the new with the old there. The job they've done there is fantastic. Melbourne, did the MCG, did an ODI there once a couple of years back. Australia v India. There was 50,000 people, and it was only half full. Yeah, it was weird.
Weird, majority of them will have been Indian fans too.
Well, it was loud as anything. The bottom tier around the ground was heaving, and then you look around the rest of the stadium, and there was another 40,000 empty seats.
Yeah.
So you've got certain grounds. Basin Reserve at Wellington, always enjoyed there because I got 100 there when I was playing for England in the 19s. So many minutes ago, edgy few through the gully and stick at you, yeah. So to go back to grounds that you've always done well on as well is always quite nice. Some obviously a lot of the outgrounds and the international grounds, but I'd probably say that Lords would probably be up there with my favourite, I reckon.
Hopefully, mate, with all of this new world that we've got, you might get yourself an Ashes test now as well. Maybe if they keep one home umpire, that would be pretty awesome for Test cricket, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, we've obviously discussed that amongst the guys, and there's been chat with with the ICC as well now with non-neutral umpires. I mean, the only issue arising is if you do a Test match and it comes to the guts of the match and you've got no reviews left, then you end up giving England a decision on an umpire's call, so you can understand where that's going to go with. But I'd have no issue at all to be able to stand in an Ashes Test match. I'd love it, to challenge myself with the best players in the world, and obviously the pressure that series brings as well. And we want to be able to come out of a series like that and doing well would be great, really. Especially in international cricket. But tomorrow, obviously we've got tomorrow now. I mean, that's just as big a day, really. Series of 1-1, and really look forward to going into that. It's just obviously a bit weird with no crowd, and feels like a championship game. It's weird, when you're out there, it just feels like you can hear the cameraman at the gantries speaking to each other. You can hear the clicks of the cameras. You can hear the support staff speaking to each other on the balconies. It's really random. You can hear the security staff just outside the boundary. It's things that you'd never normally hear in an international match. And then obviously because of the squads as well of the teams, so you look across to the hotel and then you see obviously all the players and that, giving some friendly encouragement from the balconies as well. Yeah. So it's been in that respect it's been weird, but it's just nice to be back involved and back on the field and everybody being able to watch some cricket.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Over the years, how many nicknames have you been known by?
What have I had?
Been a few.
There's been a few. Ledge, I don't know where that came from. Bestie, probably from you, that one. Bestie, I reckon. Ledge, Goffy. Go on, tell me. I'm sure you can come up with some more.
No, I love George best, but we'll leave our listeners and viewers they can guess as to why.
Yeah, no, I'm pleased I've left that part of my life behind me, thankfully. The Bestie days, but that summed up, why I left the game, because I wasn't focused. And if in this day and age, if people don't enjoy the game, then there's no point in being involved. And I got that sort of nickname for the wrong reasons, and it wasn't something I was particularly, enamoured with. Really, it's nice to have a laugh in it, but at the time when you look back, you think, wow, that's how people used to look at me. And I think, I look back and that's why I probably, work so hard towards the umpiring now to make myself the best I possibly can be, because I certainly didn't do that as a cricketer. So I'm always very mindful of that. But nicknames. Probably only those few, really. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I
Can't think
still
of any
call
others.
you George then? Because that's all.
You can, yes.
Thank
I
you.
don't
That's
mind
all I
that at
know
all,
you as.
mate.
It's weird.
Yeah, only for you, mate, because I like you.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Right.
Yeah.
Oh God. Now we've just gone down that road. Next question was going to be 3 ex-Durham teammates who you'd pick for a night out.
Oh, wow. Well, you'd be number one, definitely, mate. Definitely. Yeah. I'd definitely pick you. Who else had I picked for a night out? Well, I grew up with Davo as well, Mark Davies. Davies was good, great company, wasn't he? Fun, great lad, top cricketer. So used to. Number 3. Who else would I pick for number 3? Couldn't pick Gary Pratt. He was too tight. Never bought a beer, did he? Good question. I'll tell you who it would be. Brad Hodge.
Yeah, good shout.
Brad Hodge. Yeah. Hodgie, definitely. He was just, from obviously when he came to Durham, he got injured relatively quickly, didn't he?
Yeah, he broke his thumb, finger. He cut his cast off with a pair of garden shears to play again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember having a few nights out with Hodgie in and around Durham. Just a great bloke, just fun and loved his cricket, but loved it on the field and loved it off the field. And yeah, some people you just click with, don't you? Definitely. So I'd go out with you, Sri, mate, just for a couple of quiet sociables.
I think I'd enjoy that. Well, you've probably just answered one of my next questions, but we'll come to that straight away. Who'd be the last one of your ex-teammates? Or you can throw an umpire under the bus here. Who'd get the beers in? The
last one? I could name a few, couldn't I? Definitely Gary Pratt. Gary was as tight as anything, wasn't he? Gary, yeah. No wonder he used to walk around with his hands in his pockets, so he didn't have to Yeah, he was so tight. He used to have a look under the bed, so he'd lost any sleep, Gary. Yeah. But I think he'd be the one. A few of the guys that I umpire with, the 2 that I'm with on this trip as well, they can be very tight. The 2 Yorkshiremen, Kettleborough and Illingworth. Yeah, they're exactly the same, mate. They'd take the wallets out with them in the middle.
I love it.
So they don't lose any cash.
Love it.
So,
right, you've obviously played with some clever blokes. Pick me the 3 thickest blokes that you definitely wouldn't pick in your quiz team.
Colonel, number 1. Does he get picked quite regularly?
Yeah, he's been mentioned before.
He's doing umpiring, by the way.
Yeah,
he's doing a bit of umpiring.
He's good.
Colonel. It would be the other 2. I wasn't the brightest button. I was no good in the quiz. Too busy drinking everyone's beer, probably. Third one, it would be the third. You got me there, Thorby. Can't think.
Any of the umpires that might get in the mix?
No, not really. They're all good fellas, to be fair. All pretty switched on. Yeah, no, there's no one. So I just have to go with those 2, mate. Yeah.
Right on, mate.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. Last couple of questions, mate. If I was to throw $1 million in your bank account or £1 million, what would be the first thing you'd do with your money?
A good question. What would I do with my money? Just have to, enjoy it, wouldn't you? You just have to enjoy, go on a few holidays. Might take a year sabbatical to the ICC.
Love it. Let's arrange that night out with your $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. We'd have a few of those nights out. No, definitely. Just buy a nice, buy a castle for that in Hartlepool. So probably buy the biggest house in Hartlepool and just enjoy it, wouldn't you? Nice car, nice house. Give a bit to charity. See a few charities do well, and so just live a good life. But don't live the worst life doing this job, I guess. It's really good fun doing this job. Traveling the world and seeing some lovely places and meeting some good people, and watching some of the best cricketers in the world. So at times you do feel as though you've won the lottery with it, but until you have a bad day, and then you wish you were doing something else. So the nature of the beast.
Definitely, mate. I'm gonna squeeze another one in before my last one. What happens at the end of this Test match? Do you get to escape the bubble?
We do, yeah, we do. So due to finish on Tuesday, and then I've been in the bubble now this is my 30th night. I was counting the day. in the bubble. Yeah, so it's been a long time, but enjoyable because we lived in each other's pockets and we've got to know each other, really well. We've all got good relationships with each other. But yeah, we'll be able to go home for a few days, which would be nice. See the family, wash some socks. Yeah, so it'll be nice to get home, and then obviously back here again for the Pakistan series.
Good.
So yeah, on field for this tomorrow, back for the Pakistan series where I'll be fed umpire for the first test, and then on field for the second and third at Southampton.
Brilliant stuff, great stuff. Last question, Georgie. If an actor was to play Michael Gough in the story of Michael Gough, which actor would you pick to play you?
Well, apparently the likeness between me and Nicolas Cage has been mentioned a few times. Yeah. So yeah, I think there's a bit of resemblance. Obviously, when he's really good looking in those films, not when he's been ugly. So yeah, guess I guess.
Con Air, mate.
Con Air. Yeah, no. So I reckon Nicolas Cage would probably would play an average ICC umpire in my autobiography.
Get that finger up. Beautiful, man. Well, Goughy, thanks very much for your time, mate. Appreciate you joining us on the night before the third test. Hope everything goes well this week, mate, and enjoy going back to your family.
Thought it'd be brilliant, and been brilliant watching this from the Finkerland as well, mate. I've watched all the episodes as well so far. Really enjoyed what you're doing, mate. Keep up the good work. It's great to listen to, and it's great to hear the stories from all the guys that we haven't seen for a long time or heard from. So keep up the good work yourself, mate.
Good stuff, mate. Take care.
Cheers, Dobby.